Well, apparently I forgot to change my accent, but hello. Welcome to a quiet, probably quite random squirrel. Uh, I just happen to be bumming around in one of my favorite thinking places, doing my thing, going for a cruise.
Ah, yes. How are you?
I am good, thank you. I'm just kind of thinking to myself
I understand, and believe me, it was never playful.
what it is about certain things that keep me coming back to them. What it is about certain movies that always left me with a certain feeling like I'd been taken somewhere very interesting uh, and a part of me had been left there. And the kind of things that kept me wanting to return to them, even if perhaps I knew what to expect. And it's movies, I suppose, and games that always leave you with a question. And it's one of those questions that's often better off left unanswered.
I swear, baby.
And in a
I
way, it
swear,
is a
okay?
question that is never answered in most things. And that's a matter that's a matter of perspective, of course. And I'll get to that. But I guess I'll give a few examples first while I'm strolling, and I'm going to get away from cell phone dude here because he's probably going to say something stupid. But movies like, let's first say, for example, and if you haven't seen the movie, well, let's say The Dark Crystal. It's a Jim Henson movie. I can't remember who directed it, but it's all like Muppets and stuff, and physical effect creatures, and they don't look stupid. They're pretty fucking cool considering the movie was made like in the early '80s. And basically, you're like an orphan of a particular kind of species of creature that there's only like supposedly one left, and he's like the last one. And these kind of like they look like to me they look like four-armed hippie miniature brontosaurus rexes. If you ever see the movie or if you've seen the movie, you probably already know exactly what I mean, but I can't really describe them any better than that right now. Um, and they're taking care of this guy, and they give him a quest. I can't remember why. It's been years since I've seen the movie. But he has to take this shard of crystal and put it back in the quote unquote dark crystal and heal it and make it like the light crystal or whatever. And he has to go find the castle of like the dark beings, which are the Skeksis, and they're these shriveled up, buzzard looking, terrible looking things. And they're like the bad guys for the story. Anyway, he goes through this big long quest and everything, and he fixes his crystal. And I won't tell you what happens because that ruin the whole movie if you haven't seen it. But at the end of the movie, it's brought about suddenly these new changes, and these changes happen to a world you've grown to care about, and characters you've grown to care about. And some changes are good, some changes are bad, And but it leaves you with that question unanswered. What have those changes brought about? What is this new world going to be like? What's going to happen? What's another movie that does that? There's many of them. And I'm kind of getting lost, but distracted by my first random squirrel. I suppose in the sense of games like Grand Theft Auto or open-ended games like Skyrim, or even stuff like The Witcher, because although it has a very well-crafted story, and I mean The Witcher 3, it's the only one I've played, but it has a well-crafted story, but it also has a lot of stuff just going on in the world that's random. And whenever you're walking around and exploring the world or driving around and exploring the world, you can always ask yourself the question, well, what next? And you're never quite sure what the answer to that question might be. And it's for that reason I think that people keep coming back to those games and just existing in them. Fallout 4, Fallout 3, Fallout New Vegas, Skyrim, Oblivion, or not Oblivion, Oblivion. Games like that. A lot of the Zelda games. It was always, back in the day anyway, there was always so much open world to explore, and just some little side events that you might find that you didn't need to progress the game any farther to beat the game, but were always interesting to find. And in the old school days of 2D side-scrolling stuff like Mario, you might find secret pipe warp, or I don't know, whatever. There was a chance to find things that you would get to by exploring, by going to places that you'd think maybe you weren't meant to, and there was always that question, what next? And for games that had a story, for games that had a point to get to, levels to get to, and get through, there was always the question of, well, what will the next level look like? How cool will it be? And it was a fairly common video game trope back in the day to make each progressive level in a video game cooler than the next one. So that the last level of the game, the last boss, and the last whole everything was always the most epic of the whole thing, And it would just kind of bring you up to that point and then leave you gasping at the end, and fucking that was great. And a lot of them because of limitations in programming and the fact that at that stage gaming was by no means young, but still learning quite a lot about storytelling. There wasn't necessarily a what's next. It's just like, congratulations, you did at the end. But now they're starting to build worlds that are intricate enough and varied enough in what can happen in them that there's always a certain question of what next. What's around the next corner? I mean, I know these roads like the back of my hand, but I never know what vehicle might be coming around the corner, what the weather might be like. If I'm playing online with other people, I might suddenly find myself being chased by an attack helicopter with machine guns on it. But, that'll get your blood pumping. So, it's what appeals to me in the sense of these games. And even in reading a book or in watching a movie, like I said, it's important to have a certain question of what's next. But it's also important to understand maybe the perspective of the importance of the question of what next. Because it seems to always be kind of perfectly befitting or counterpointing whatever emotion you can or context you put on it. If horrible things are happening in your life, the question what next might be something you don't want answered. Because you're fearful of it. If you're more optimistic, the question what next might be your favorite question. Especially if you don't know the answer, because then you get a surprise. But in a way, because our lives seem to inevitably flow from one moment to the next, the question what next both always gets answered and also never runs out of the ability to question what's next. It's always a valid question, even though from moment to moment you always get the answer. It's an infinite question. And I think that's what I like the most about it. Question that never gets answered. But for which one can always find the answer. It's kind of a perfect question. Well, I guess I'll just leave it hanging there. Say what's next. Stare up at the moon. Think about shit. Have a good one.